Hey everybody, it's Eric alongside Rod with our Illinois pregame show sponsored by Fanduel Sportsbook, your go-to source for betting on the sports you love to watch. Whether it's just a parlay or let's stick to the money line, find all the odds you need at the Fanduel app. Easy to download and you can get started right away. Head on over there and get it downloaded on your phone or computer. Also, make sure you go to Fanduel Player of the Game. We'll do that on Slido. That's slido.com, hashtag TFFINOTS. A big thanks to all of you who listen on the audio or watch on YouTube. We appreciate each and every one of you and your subscriptions, likes, hypes, supports. Continues to help us grow and reach more and more Spartan fans every day. We've also been attracting more non-MSU Spartan fans. Welcome to you as well. If you're here just as a hate watcher, whatever, I'm glad you have a place to pass the time. Without the passion, love, and hate, sports, would be pretty bland and boring. So it's all part of it. It is annoying at times, but you know what? We can all annoy each other together. All right. So anyway, Rod, Michigan State returns home on the backs of a 2-game losing streak. The first to Michigan at home was, not a good loss. It certainly was understandable one. The loss last night in Minneapolis, it kind of felt inexplicable. It's probably best summed up by Tom Izzo, just, said it's kind of gut check time. And of course, on top of the two losses is maybe the bigger story that's sort of brewing is, of course, Jeremy Fears. Initially called out by Dusty Fears for what he saw as a dangerous play or hard foul or play against Yaks on Friday night. And then in frustration last night, he was fouled on the key pretty hard, falling down, kicks a guy, gets a flagrant one. And so now he's in the hot seat, sort of his edgy, get under your skin way of playing is under the microscope. With social media, there's plenty of video that can be broken down, clips and all kinds of things can be seen. So you just can't get away with stuff or everything's going to be under microscope. And so it's also true that Fears has irritated fans across the league with his ability to draw fouls on their team. They'd love to see him and Michigan State suffer. I think there's all that sort of driving and this sort of thing could have happened 15 years ago. But what's kind of the sort of the frenzy that happens now with social media is certainly has descended once again upon Michigan State, and Jeremy Fears is the recipient of that. So let's talk about that before we even talk about Illinois.
Yeah, I look. Is there a situation here where Jeremy's got to mature and cut some of that stuff out of his game? Absolutely. I wouldn't deny that.
Right.
But the Zapruder analysis, some of these clowns, save it. I can apply. And the reason I say that is this, and it shouldn't be news to anybody with two fucking brain cells to rub together. If we want to start doing this and we want to start going through every second of every game with a fine-tooth comb, you know what I'm going to bet we'll find? Lots and lots and lots of stuff that looks like this. That's not to excuse Jeremy Fears. It's to say enough with the fine-tooth comb shit. Because I will guarantee you, if we do that, we're going to find stuff that guys on your favorite team are doing that you don't like. So that's my main objection. It's not to say that Jeremy shouldn't suffer consequences for the stuff that he's done that goes outside the lines. I will note it's interesting that much of what seems to be angering people, though, and this is my lawyer hat, I guess, is attempted stuff.
Right.
Not stuff he actually did. I guess that doesn't make it a lot better, but it is worth noting that we're talking about mostly theoretical stuff. Now, the play he got teed up for last night was not theoretical. That was actual.
Mm-hmm.
But I just do find that kind of funny. But yeah, this goes right to it's the same kind of thing as we get with endless reviews in games. You think technology is making things better, and I would argue it's making them worse. And this is one more example of that. Because here's what's going to happen. I guarantee, and you already saw it in the Michigan game. After all the brouhaha, Michigan State people started looking at the tape and saw 5 or 6 plays that you could have easily been teed, for plays that were dangerous to one degree or another, got outside the lines. This is what you get.
Yeah.
And it's I guess this is my bottom line. Nobody's innocent out there. Nobody. And if you want a game where we do this shit constantly, fine. It's not going to be very entertaining. You're not going to like you're not going to like the way that ends up. Yeah. So that's my response to the frenzy, which you're absolutely right in calling it that. I mean, we're recording this, a little after 2 on Thursday afternoon. Yeah, I guess you can't rule anything out, but I think the suspension stuff was exactly what I thought it was last night. Hyperbolic and extremist. Yeah. I don't see that. I don't see any reason. I just, to me, a flagrant 1, you're going to suspend a guy for a flagrant 1? No. And I understand people say, oh, what about all these other things they found? Well, that's not how it works. So now what Tom Izzo's going to do, that remains to be seen, I suppose. Yeah. But we're going to revisit this when we get to the keys. Jeremy's got to use this as a moment to turn it around, because he is under the microscope. You're absolutely right about that. I could sit here and say, guys, you don't want to do this, because down this road leads to an ugly, ugly game for everybody, because you're going to find a ton of plays like this both ways in every game that's ever played. You're going to. But it's fine for me to say that and know that I'm absolutely correct about that, beyond a shadow of a doubt. But the problem with that is none of that matters, in the sense that people are going to be watching Jeremy, and it's not even the video stuff, whatever. It's the officials are going to be watching.
Oh yeah, they're too.
That.
The
so
fans,
he just can't. He can't do that, and yet at the same time, he's got to be able to walk the line by not allowing that to turn him into a different player than he is. So that's a challenge, but it's also not an unheard of challenge. It happens. Right.
Yeah. Well, and I always tell this to my kids. I tell anyone who bother listening. It's interesting because your reputation is what it is, but it can change quickly, and when it changes, it can change overnight. So you can be like, great guy, whatever, and you do something, and you will then carry that reputation. It's hard to sort of reverse negative reputations, and so he could not do anything that's flagrant fouls or these plays that people get all upset about for quite a while, and it won't matter for quite some time. And that's just a reality. That's just human beings. And that's the reputation he sort of had already had, in the sense that the getting fouls and make himself difficult to sort of officiate against, obviously. But now this is a different thing, but it's as you said, the refs will be watching for this sort of stuff. And, you just got to not do it. I mean, just kind of the basic thing, and you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt. I think it's kind of what it's going to be, at least for a little while. And so you just have to be smart about it until the next thing comes up, and the next thing will come up at some point with someone. But for right now, he's just kind of in the middle of it, and he's just kind of got to get through it. Yep. And, that's just, it's a life lesson, not just a basketball thing, right? Your reputation is only as good as it was today. And then that's what you have to make sure, and you can lose it quickly. And so, this is just maybe it's not related to basketball, but it feels like it's sort of the same sort of thing. All right, well, let's just talk about Illinois. We'll talk about Jeremy a little bit later too, obviously. And it is, of course, as Rod mentioned, it is Thursday afternoon. So if any news comes out, I don't think we know anything about the Divine injury at this point either.
We don't,
except, Izzo said it'd be a while. So who knows what that means?
I don't think,
I don't think he's coming to this game. I guess we just don't know.
The vibes are not good around that. Let's just put it that way.
Yep. So let's talk about Illinois. So they obviously come in, they're 20-3 overall. They're 10-1 in the Big Ten. They just came off. They've got probably the two biggest wins the Big Ten players so far were at Nebraska, at Purdue. They of course lost to Nebraska early in the, whatever we want to call that, the first week of the season back in December. So they are, but they're fifth in Ken Pom. They just beat Nebraska or Northwestern by 40 points. I mean, they were just decimated them in Champaign. Kylan Boswell, their really great shooting guard, who is kind of their defensive stopper on the perimeter. He's out with an injury. He's broke his hand, I believe. So he's out for a little while longer. I'm not sure how much longer. I think they think it's another week or
Late
two.
this month.
A
Yeah.
couple weeks anyway.
Mid to late February.
Yeah. So they are, they're down a guy for sure, and an important player for them as starter, yet they have been playing great basketballs with his departure. They're number one in the country right now on offense, which is partly because the offensive rebounding is great. They're number 4. Their 2-point shooting is very good at 24th. Their 3-point shooting is actually pretty good too at 65th. They don't turn the ball over. They're 25th there. And they're shooting free throws at almost 80%. They're number 8 in the country in free throw shooting. So, I mean, this is a team from an offensive standpoint that is really, really good.
And you can really, it's not the whole story, but it's a heavy percentage of it. You can attribute to Keaton Wagler, who's just been phenomenal,
right,
as a freshman. You want to dial in on what the main difference is between their team last year and this year. In my opinion, it's a difference between a guy who was supposed to be theoretically supposed to be great, Ugochukwu, and Wagler, who actually is. Really, it's not that Ugochukwu had nothing, but he was maddeningly inconsistent. His decision making was not great, and that goes for passing, that goes for shot selection across the board. Wagler is a vastly superior player, in my opinion, and it makes their whole thing go. It is remarkable they've been able to actually seemingly get better since the Boswell injury. That is something you would not have called. But that's, I think, the truth. And again, Wagler, they're just putting so much around him. They've got a team that offensively really doesn't have weak spots. The one thing you can say is, even though they shoot free throws exceptionally well, they're like at 79% as a team, they don't get there very much. That's a function. The one criticism I have is they are 11th in the country in 3-point attempts as a percentage of overall shots from the floor.
So a lot, yeah.
And while they're good and getting a little better, last night helped because they couldn't miss. But they're a good 3-point shooting team. They're not a great one. They're actually better from 2. And it's my one criticism of it's hard to criticize a team that's number 1 on offense, right? But I will. My one criticism is, because of that, I don't think they max out what they can actually be, because I think they could get to the line more potentially if they were more oriented toward not jacking as much as they do and looking to get the ball in the paint a little more. They've got guys who can do that. They've got guys who can finish. They've got guys who can penetrate. They've got big men who can score around the rim. They've got and they shoot exceptionally well from 2. So all the evidence is there. They just don't do it enough. And if I were an Illinois fan, for as great as things look, the thing I would be worried about in any game they play against a good team is today the day that we just can't buy a 3.
Yeah.
Because if that happens with the way they run their offense, they will be in trouble despite all these strengths we're talking about. It's a lack of offensive balance. That's my criticism. Now, if they go ahead and they shoot their way to some championships, okay. But I don't like that. I think it's the same thing I say about Alabama every year under Nate Oates. You play it that way. And to me, and we just had this discussion on Monday night with Ryan Hammer, right?
Right. Yeah. He was saying the same thing. Yeah.
And we're talking about tournament play, really, as where the vulnerability really jumps up and bites you. You have one, even if Illinois were an elite 3-point shooting team, I'd still have that criticism. Because if you're a team that shoots threes really well, but for whatever reason, you're just not built to do much else, okay, I get it. That's your strength. You got to play to it. That's not the case for Illinois. I do believe they could play differently. They're choosing not to. And thus they are creating a potential vulnerability for themselves. That's my 2 cents.
Do you think, though, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I just wonder too with the Visages, but the Twins, they are definitely, their game, although they are very good 2-point shooters, their game seems to be like many of these guys, they want to play in the NBA, and they think that their value to the NBA is, of course, hitting threes if you're a big guy, can stretch the floor. Do you feel like that's just a function of just the way that these players are sort of want to play, that they'd rather be sort of on the periphery? Because I do agree with you. Those guys can be very good inside. They just don't spend as much time in as they could.
It's probably some of that. I don't doubt that that's the case, but you know what? That's what you employ a head coach for.
Well, right.
The head coach is supposed to say, guys, and truthfully, if you think in the NBA that the only thing that they want a 7'1" guy to do is to shoot threes, no. You need to be able to do both. Ideally, you want to be able to you want a 7-footer to be able to be a guy you can use around the rim as well. You know, layups and dunks aren't gone. They haven't been legislated out of the game.
No.
And I just think from a even from an analytic perspective, we know that 3-point shooting, no matter how good you are at it, is much more subject to variability on any given game. Right. Over the course of a season, absolutely, it'll play out. But that's not the way it works in the NCAA tournament. These aren't best of fives, best of sevens.
Yeah.
They're single game elimination. And I just don't understand it. I just don't. Like I say, if they didn't have a choice, if he hadn't been able to recruit much size, like I'll give you an example. I wouldn't fault a Ben McCollum or Darian DeVries for playing that way because of the rosters they have.
Yeah, no options.
But this team, I don't get it.
Well, I think it's driven largely by the players, and maybe I know that's maybe not satisfying because like you said, there's a coach there who dictates sort of how you play.
That's right.
But maybe he's like, well, the only way I can get these Euros to come and play all the time is if I tell them that, you've got a green light to go play. I don't know
that. No, I think this is this isn't, well, I got to give in. No, I think this is what he wants to do. He did it last year.
Yeah, this
is what he wants to do. I just don't understand it when he has the personnel to play in a little more balanced fashion. But look, right now,
it doesn't matter.
I'm the guy looking at the market and saying, I see an inefficiency here, and yet the market keeps rolling on. So we'll see if I'm right.
Yeah. You're just yelling at the clouds right now, but maybe it turns out those clouds are chemtrails you need to worry about. All right. So going to the other side of the ball on defense, they're not as good. They're 19th overall. Obviously can't be better than first. They don't turn the ball over a whole lot. They are solid against twos at 26 because of their size. Obviously they're number 63 against the threes. They don't foul anyone. They're number 1 in not fouling. And the defensive rebounding is not as good as Michigan State, but very good at number 18. The one thing you could say about them too is now without Boswell, I got to imagine they're going to be a little bit worse in the perimeter with their defense. But that's not the only difference. But we're done with the last couple games.
And they've played, and they do bust some zone out there where there's a lot of length. I mean, that's one area they've actually gained with Boswell out of the rotation. I mean, they're just huge. The small, their top 7, which is really the bulk of the minutes. You got a couple other guys that may get cameos, but it's really 7 guys. The smallest guy is Wagler and Davis at 6'6". So it's a lot of length. This had been a vulnerability. Now, the last couple games, Illinois has played extremely well defensively, and so they've risen up the ranks. They were in the 30s about a week ago.
Yeah.
So I'm not convinced they're truly a top 20 defense, but they're plenty good enough to win with. Again, they don't really have glaring weaknesses except for the fact they don't generate any turnovers ever. But I think that's a less important number to me, honestly. It has to do more with stylistically what you're trying to do than anything else. And they're not organized. They're not oriented toward doing that. So fine. What they do is they want to limit your shot selection and limit you to one shot when you miss. And they do a great job at those things.
Yeah. And you're going to have a good defense if you manage to do that. That's Michigan State philosophy as well.
Yeah. I think the question with Illinois is not, are they good defensively? It's, are they good or are they great? I'm not sure they're great. The numbers say they're pretty close to that. I'm not sure I believe it, but we'll see how it sorts out in the end.
Now, also defense, and we mentioned with Minnesota, but Illinois can employ some zone too at times. I don't know if they play a lot of zone, but they do play some. I feel like I've watched them.
Well, that's why I mentioned the length.
Yeah, right.
When they play that zone with that kind of length on the perimeter,
right. It's like Syracuse almost.
Yeah, I mean they're not that, but yeah, it creates problems. So Michigan State's going to have to find ways. That's again, last night, what was the watchword for me? I kept saying it over and over and over. You got to attack. You got to play with force. It's harder to do that against a zone. I do question how much zone we'll see only from this perspective. Illinois wants to rebound, and they've been good at it this year, but you run real risks of giving up second chances if you're playing a lot of zone. So we'll see it. I just don't know if it'll be a steady diet of it or just occasional looks. We'll have to see.
And then finally, as far as tempo, they are a very slow team. They're 319th in average length of offensive possession, 266th in overall tempo, which I think that both of those numbers are slower than Michigan State's.
They are, and it's by design. I saw a clip with one of their staff members the other day where he talked about how they really analyzed this when they were going into the portal and they were deciding who was going to be on this, who's going to fill out this roster, that they wanted to optimize their efficiency. Well, it's hard to argue that they haven't done that when they've got the number one offense in the country right now.
Yeah, that's true.
They knew they wanted to play slowly. They felt that was going to benefit this particular group of players, and it has. They're still, although I think the watchword for Illinois offensively over the last few years has been that they want to, it's kind of and this is an gross oversimplification, but a lot of people will talk about it in the context of it's an NBA style offense. So what do they mean by that? Well, what someone's saying that about Illinois is trying to get at is they want to try to find mismatches. They want to move the ball, and it's why they play slowly. They want to take enough time so there's enough movement, enough screening action, all of that to try to create a bad matchup for you defensively. And then they want to have that player exploit that matchup. And that is something that you see much more ruthlessly done in the NBA. To me, it's always been the biggest difference between the college game and the pro game is that college game, it's very difficult to find college teams that relentlessly exploit mismatches. In the NBA, you're in a mismatch, you're going to get killed 90% of the time. They seek and destroy it. That's the talent difference, in the NBA. If you've got a physical mismatch, however that manifests, you're quicker, you're bigger, whatever it is, those guys are so good, they will make that count. In college, it doesn't work that way often enough, but Illinois does. And so that's one of the reasons why they play slowly. They are mismatch hunting, and that can take some time. That could take 25 seconds.
Yeah.
To create that, to find that spot and then attack it. But that's what they do. They really started doing that in earnest through 2-3 years ago when they had the booty ball team. Yeah. And it just, they've continued largely to do that. Again, it gets mixed in with jacking a lot of threes. So it's, to me, if you're just solely about hunting mismatches, well, there's a lot of times you can create that in the paint. Yeah. Why don't you go to that with more frequency? But anyway.
Yeah, those guys tend to float around on the outside a little bit more. Yeah, I feel like, and with Michigan State, their defense, as far as their gap help, it's the guy who drives, who causes the distortion, who causes the over rotation, and then you're going to have the open shots. And so I imagine they're going to have to try and figure out a way to stop the ball handler, right? I mean, that's going to be the
and they've got challenge. And Illinois has
they don't have Boswell guys, at least, which helps.
They got two guys who really do that well. Wagler does that well, and Stojakovic is not necessarily a gifted passer, but he's definitely a guy that can create stress through penetration.
Right.
So they do have guys. Boswell does it well too, and so they're not going to have to deal with that. But
yeah. All right. Well, if you want to deal with your wager, let's talk about some FanDuel and some interesting wagers going on. We actually have a line for this game because it's a big game. There are a number of games actually on Saturday that we already have a line on. So right now the line is, and I don't know if it surprised me. It's Michigan State 1.5 points on the line in FanDuel right now.
It's not a total shocker.
They certainly don't think Jeremy's getting suspended. We'll say that.
Well, yeah, clearly. I don't either. But I think the biggest thing here is obviously home court. We know what home court.
Yeah, it's worth 7-8 points. Yeah, right.
I don't know if it's quite that much, but it's enough. And the other factor here is analytics. Michigan State's analytics are still very, very healthy. We know because we've seen these last 3 games. Wow, they're not playing at the level they've played at most of the year.
Right.
Okay, so we understand that. But we talked about this with some of these other teams. The analytics haven't quite caught up to that yet. So that's why you're seeing it. If I'm rendering an opinion right now, I think Michigan State's an underdog. By that, I don't mean to suggest they can't win.
Right.
But if you were gambling, I'd probably take Illinois in the points.
Yeah. Right. You're given 1.5 points. Yeah. This is why I can't really gamble much, because I can't put money down against my team. And so if you got to be sort of cold-blooded about this sort of thing. And I don't think I'd be feeling any better like, oh, you put money down on your team to lose, then
it
just causes
make me
mixed
feel
emotions.
better either. But I know there are people that their minds function, their psyches function that way. So
I guess if you have to put money on this game, you can look at the over under, and you don't want to pick a money line or something like the money line. The over under is 144.5, which is I think similar to what it was in Minnesota game. Obviously they hit the over.
Seems about right. Seems about right to me, because you are talking about. Yeah, Illinois is a great offensive team, right? But they also use a lot of clock. And playing against a Michigan State defense, I think it's safe to say they will be doing that a lot. We've talked about Michigan State without Divine out there. Might they be more prone? It's a hard one because they're not better in the half court. I know that. But you got to weigh that against how do you preserve things so you get the most out of Fears in terms of his time on the court at a level where he's effective, so you haven't run him into exhaustion the way we've seen in a couple games. It's a hard one, but I might even be inclined to take the under, honestly.
Just because you think Michigan State's going to have trouble scoring more, and
it's
going to really they're going to slow down the game as much as they can too.
I think it's going to be a low possession game. It's about Illinois too.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Illinois can be efficient offensively, but how many possessions are they going to get?
Yeah. Obviously Michigan State always wants to get fast break and get some points that way, but they're going to have to limit in some respects in this game. I mean, unless you get the turnover, sort of the easy ones. Like,
I don't know.
Wojcik's going to be out there for 8-10 minutes or whatever it is. They're not going to be pushing that hard. I can't imagine with him on the floor. I mean, I know he runs the break, but it's not the same.
It's a hard one because you want to make Illinois play a faster game. They don't want to do that.
Right.
That's not how we just spent 5 minutes talking about that.
Right. Yeah.
That's not what they want to do. The problem is for Michigan State, if you do too much of that, you could run yourself into a situation where you're out of gas the last 5 minutes. So I don't know. I don't know how they approach it. We'll see.
All right. Well, let's talk about guys who know how to approach all the problems. Those are the Brothers Adjust Your Gutters. If you have any problems with your gutters, talk to those guys. They can take care of it. The brothers will come out to your place. They'll take a look at your house or your business. They can fix a little bit, the whole thing. They replace everything, whatever you need done. If it has to do with gutters, those guys can take care of it. They'll get up in the ladder so you don't have to clean them out. And boy, I was so frustrated. I thought we were just actually finally out of the weather, and there's a little bit of snow today again. So my gutters are still covered in snow. Head over to our support page at tffinots.com/support. There you can find the necessary links to get a hold of Kurt and Greg, whether you're on the east or the west side of the state. They'll take care of those gutters. And they can just come out. They've taken care of Rod's. They've taken care of mine. They take care of my wife's, their office. So I mean, they'll do any job, whether it's big or small, and they'll give you great pricing and great people too. So obviously big Spartan fans as well. So head on over there today and get 10% off. Just mentioning Final Four when you get your estimate. All right. So they sponsor the player that Michigan State needs to keep in the gutter, who Rod will tell us after. I can guess who it is, but we'll see. I'll begin with the starters. Keaton Wagler, 6'6" freshman from Kansas. He was a 3-star recruit coming into the season. He's averaging almost 18 points a game now, and that's gone up quite a bit. I think he was averaging quite a bit less earlier, maybe like 4 weeks ago. 5 rebounds a game, 4 assists per game, only 1.5 turnovers a game, so he's efficient, doesn't turn the ball over, shooting 48, 44, 81, 6 free throw attempts per game, as you mentioned before. He's a guy who drives. I mean, this kid's doing it all, and I mean, not saying he's like Jace Richardson, but he's a little bit like Jace Richardson in that I think, the expectation for Jace coming into the season was not that he would be a one and done. I don't think that was probably pretty similar for Wagler. And so I can't see him coming back next year, but we'll see.
No, he's done. This is beyond Jace Richardson. I
agree.
In the notes, I wouldn't compare it to anybody. It's the most unique story I can recall in the Big Ten for a long, long time. The guy that I go to, but it's different even than this was, is Steve Smith. Steve Smith was kind of I don't even know if he was top 100. It wasn't really thought about that way,
right,
in those days. But he was definitely a very, very under-recruited, underrated recruit. There were other guys in state, multiple other guys, who got way more attention than he did in his class. But the difference here is it took Steve until he was a sophomore to really explode, and then until he was a junior to play at something close to the level Keaton Wagler's at right now. They also, because of the games, remind me a little bit of each other, that they're tall guys who can play point guard. Wagler's just fantastic. I mean, I can't say enough good things about him. He's had an amazing year. And as I said at the outset, to me, you could talk about other guys. You could talk about, the Slavics and all that stuff. The difference is this guy. That's it. Doesn't get any more complicated than that.
Right. Little doubt. Freshman player of the year in the Big Ten. I think there's no question about that.
Oh, he's easily, but the only remaining question is he going to be player of the year? And I think right now he'd be the favorite.
Yeah, well, and often it depends on how the team ends up, right? Yeah,
it does, but that alone is remarkable.
Yeah,
you are talking about any freshman. Forget the ballyhoo coming in contention for Player of the Year honors, and he is right there.
So then we'll begin with Jake Davis, 6'6" junior, who's been inserted in the starting lineup with the injury to Boswell, averaging 5.3 points a game on 43, 41, 70 shooting. And if you've watched the game, obviously, he just basically spends his entire time outside the 3-point line. If anything, he drives in just to kick it out to someone else so that he can get a screen to get it open for 3 somewhere else. But he's very dangerous this year. And he's, I think he's shooting better than he did last season. I feel like
he is.
So
that's his primary value. I mean, he's been part of a solid defense too. So it's not that he contributes literally nothing else, but he doesn't give you much as a rebounder. He takes about 90% of his shots from 3. So that's what he is. And that's fine if you do that efficiently. And he has. So given the way he shot the ball, he's been a net positive for them, no question. And yeah, he's been sick. Last year he was supposed to add shooting and it was intermittent. I think he was in the mid 30s. This year, 40% plus, they're getting what they need out of him.
So now move outside the regular players. We'll move on to the Fighting Ilinovich, and we'll start with Andrei Stojakovic, 6'7" junior, who actually, although he is of descent, he is actually American, right? I think because his dad played in the NBA. So he's the one, I guess you can say it's not actually the Slavic one. Averaging 13.5 points a game, 4.5 rebounds a game, shooting 49, 24, and 84. So obviously the 24, the outside shot's not there, but he does all kinds of other things really well. He is definitely a threat heading to the rack.
Very different player than his father. His father was one of the great perimeter shooters of his era in the NBA, Peja. And, his son Andre is just not ever. He came out of high school with a reputation as a shooter, but he's in year 3. He played a year at Stanford and then a year at Cal. And he's never really found consistency with the jumper, but his mentality is very different. He is looking to go off the dribble. He's looking to use his size to score efficiently around the rim off the dribble. And he has done that very, very well, near 50% shooter from the floor. So, I mean, ideally they'd like him to be a more consistent deep shooter, but it just hasn't been a problem.
Very weird going from Cal to Stanford. And then third year to Illinois. I mean, I don't know. It's, again, just different era, whatever. It's just, things are just different, kind of weird. And I don't know. Is a rivalry is there?
Yeah.
There's a rivalry between Stanford and Cal. But I mean, like basketball. No, I mean, I know there is, but is it the same intensity with basketball, or is it more of a football rivalry, or
that's a rivalry? Kind of like, it's
a school rivalry.
It's a rivalry in everything, but is it a rivalry the way that you're used to in a Big Ten context? No, because nothing is. Yeah. Yes, it's a rivalry in all sports, but you know, how many people are showing up at a Stanford Cal basketball game? It's usually not a sellout, no matter where they're playing. I can tell you that.
Well, especially now, of course, now that Cal's playing a little bit better, they're and Stanford's kind of like hovering in the periphery. So anyway, as Dom says, they're in the All Coast Conference now, the ACC. Then we have David Mirkovich, 6'9", 250-pound freshman, averaging 12.5 points a game, 8.2 rebounds a game, leading the team. Shoots outside quite a bit too. He's shooting 48, 39, and 81 for the season.
Yeah, he's been a great addition for them. You know, he's not one of those guys that's a 24-year-old, so I'll cut him a little bit of slack, but he did have professional experience. But he's been huge. He's another, you know, I've simplified it by saying the biggest difference between last year and this year is Wagler, and I do believe that's the biggest thing. But the other thing you can point to is, whereas last year they never really found the level of play at the 4 that they needed, they've got it this year in this kid, because he's big, he plays physically, he's willing to throw his body around, he's an excellent rebounder at both ends, and yet he can also step away from the rim and shoot it.
Yeah. And finally, we have Tomislav Ivizic, the first of the two Ivizic's. 250-pound junior, averaging almost 10 points a game, 5.7 rebounds a game, shooting 48, 35, and 70. And so he's obviously a stretch risk as well. I think the game I was watching, I guess in Nebraska, I feel like he had a bunch of them that kind of really.
Yeah, he tends to be kind of streaky that way. Like he'll get them in bunches. I think they probably, I mean, not that anybody's complaining there given the way the season's going right now, but I would think they expected a little bit more out of him shooting the ball than he's done. 35% is okay, but I think they thought he might be a 40-plus guy, and he hasn't been. Overall, I mean, his play, his rebounding, it's okay. Not as good as I think they thought he would be. And you know, last year, if you remember, he just had issues staying healthy.
Yeah.
But when he was able,
and everything. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. When he was able to play, he was really good. This year, he's been fine. He's good, but I just feel like there's another, and again, this is a guy who I absolutely think can do more around the rim in the lane than he does. And yeah, you could say, well, he's floating, but it's on the team. It's on the coach.
Yeah. Right. For sure.
But good player. I just feel like they maybe expected a little more.
All right, so let's move on to the reserves. We'll begin Ben Humberkaus, who came from the Missouri Valley year prior. 6'8" senior, averaging a little under 6 points a game, almost 4 rebounds a game. Plays about 21 minutes, so plays quite a bit. Shooting 37, 34, and 77. Last year, he was great, and then he just couldn't hit the throw in the ocean. And I know when Michigan State faced him, he wasn't very good. And quoting, I think, Brad Underwood a week or two ago, he said that he couldn't guard a dead man. And then he quipped that Tom Izzo's mom would score 20 on him. But now he thinks he's gotten a lot better defensively.
Yeah, I don't know if he's gotten a lot better, but that was an issue last year. He was a classic example of a guy who needed to be a 40% plus guy to be a net positive for them because he's not a great rebounder. He's not really a physical player, and he has issues defensively. But, you know, part of it, if they're able to play some zone, you can kind of hide him a little bit. They've reduced his role. As I say, big difference having Merkovich versus him at the power forward. Big difference. And so now that he's in a reserve role, you can live with what he gives you a little more readily.
And back to another Ilinovich is Zvonimir Ivic, brother of obviously Tomislav. He's also 7'1". He came in from Arkansas to join his brother. He's averaging almost 7.5 points a game, a little over 5 rebounds a game, 2.5 blocks a game, just plays 17 minutes. So pretty productive when he gets in there, shooting 55, 36, and 63.
Yeah, and it's ironic. He's slightly better from 3 this year, but I also feel like he's been better around the basket at both ends. The shot blocking is a big difference between the two. He's like a legit weapon as a rim protector, whereas Tomislav doesn't give you much of that. But yeah, really a real luxury to have a guy who can do the things he does coming off your bench.
Then we have Brandon Lee, a 6'4" freshman. He's played a little bit because of Boswell's injury. He's averaging 2 points a game on 40, 0, and 91 shooting.
Yeah, we're just beginning to find out what he can do because he wasn't playing very much. And that's the thing. Illinois can get away with this because of the pace they play at. They can get away with a shallow bench. So these last 2 guys, they might get a turn or 2 in this game, and that's it.
And the last Ilinovich is Mihajlo Petrovic, 6'2" sophomore, averaging 2.1 points a game, 1.3 assists per game, plays only 7 minutes, shooting 32, 20, and 83.
Yeah, you know, when they landed him, there was a lot of, because he is an older guy. He's a sophomore, but I think he's in his 20s. There was a lot of optimism that he might even be their starting point guard. And so 2 things happened. One, Wagler proved that he was ready for prime time. And the other thing is this guy had eligibility issues. He got there very late in the summer. And I wonder if that's been part of it as to why he hasn't had much of an impact, because I know they were enthusiastic about him. There were comparisons between he and Yakuchonis, actually, with the difference being the big difference in size. This guy's only 6'2", but I remember the talk in the summer was, yeah, this guy is a very, very good passer too, but he's much less mistake prone. He's more mature, all that. Well, we really haven't had reason to see a lot of him. But I do wonder if getting a late start has contributed to it. I don't know.
Am I misremembering, or did Illinois add someone like when the season had already started? Or is it Petrovic tonight? He just was right before the season started. I thought they had Europe or something.
There. He finally got
that must be the who I'm thinking of. Then it just took a while.
Yeah, it was very late in the off season.
Okay, so for the Brothers Just Who Gutters, player that Michigan State needs to keep to the gutter, who do you have for Michigan State?
Pretty obviously, it's Keaton Wagler. I mean, they've got other good players that can do damage, but Wagler is the whole thing.
Yeah. Little question. And does he play most of the point now? Well,
so he's the only point guard. That's the thing. God help them if they hadn't. Well, they'd play Petrovic more, but they'd have to. But they really don't. I mean, Boswell was the guy that was playing those minutes when Wagler would sit previously, but they would have a problem.
All right. And people don't have problems with the Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids. Those guys can take care of your windows, whether it's your business or your home. You can head over to our support page at the Final Four on theschedule.com/support. You can find a way to get a hold of Troy and his team, and they can come out, take a look at your business, your home, whatever it might be. They can set up a schedule to get those windows washed on a regular basis so they're nice and clean and you can see out of them and watch the beautiful snowfall. You can do that today at our support page. Like I said, you get 15% off as a listener or viewer of the show. Just simply by mentioning Final Four and you get the estimate. Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids. It does not have to be in Grand Rapids. They are anywhere in the Grand Rapids vicinity, which is a very large region, 100 miles or something like that. So contact Troy if you're thinking about that. They'll take care of you and they'll do a good job. And they, of course, support the Who Cleans the Glass Best segment, which is a contest between Rod and me, where we are now tied with 8 to go. We're both tied at 10 apiece. You to pick first. If you win, I have to wear a basket on my head. and if you lose, you consume helium for you. So we'll see who. And it's I was on a big run. You were starting to run. I went a big run, and now you've tied it back up. We split yesterday, so again, 8 games to go. So it's anyone's contest at this point.
Jackson Kohler.
Yeah, Jax, and well, I'll obviously go with Cooper. I think, and I think I just go the sort of the standard Cooper and Carr right now, which is I can't imagine those guys. They have to. I mean, if Michigan State wants to have a chance to win, I think they've all these guys have to play really well, and they have to. 100%. And rebounding is important, obviously. So
100%. I'm going to go with Cam Ward.
Yeah,
stay with the bigs.
Because I imagine they could get a lot of turn here. I mean, even if you wanted to go with McCullough, I think McCullough. It's hard to imagine he's going to get as much time as Ward out there. Although there are some, 2 7-footers. Sometimes they play together too, which is a really interesting lineup when Illinois does that. But yeah, you got to imagine that Ward's going to get the biggest turnout here. And that, of course, brings us to Nudge Printing's 5 keys to the game. And a neat promotion from Nudge Printing, of course, is the Jax Kohler. We're going to talk to Jeff Kohler, I think, on Monday. So we'll get that interview out Monday or Tuesday. He'll talk about the things going, and that's, of course, Jackson's dad. We'll talk about the promotion there through Nudge Printing. You can go over to nudgeprinting.com right now, and you can purchase the Jackson Kohler swag. It's he's got t-shirts and hoodies right now, all the same high quality stuff that Nudge has. Also, if you want to go to nudgeprinting.com/win, you can enter the free drawing. This month is a Travis Matthew QZ MSU basketball Sparty quarter zip. So it's a retail value of about $120. So really good prize. Costs nothing. Head on over there. You can also pick up some Tiff Knot stuff if you want. And then, of course, you can get access to all the other great stuff at Nudge Printing. And the best part is if you just type in TFFINOTS at checkout, you get 20% off your order. Do it today. You'd be very glad you did. Most popular stuff in my family. We just keep accumulating more and more Nudge stuff. And, of course, the only problem is that it lasts forever. So that you will just keep accumulating it. But that's a good problem to have. All right, so the first key to the game is fears. And now Jeremy's been on this before, but it's because he was not playing very well. He was kind of like, I don't know, there's something just kind of going on. We felt like in December. And we mentioned it's a key, and then he sort of came out of it. So maybe this will work this time. Maybe he's watching.
As we were recording this, I just got a note from somebody who's got connections with the staff and is in the media, and said that they don't know anything yet in terms of what might happen. Obviously, if Jeremy Fears were to be suspended, this game is over. I mean, I can't see a way Michigan State can win without him in the lineup. I'm assuming that will not be the case. Now, what does happen? Does Izzo sit him for half? Does he just not start him? What else might occur is up for grabs. But I'm going to assume for now that there's nothing that takes him out of playing something pretty close to his normal minutes.
Uh-huh.
That said, he's got to very quickly exhibit some maturity and an ability to learn from what's happened, because as we spent some time talking about at the outset, all eyes are on him now. So this is, how as MSU fans, you've looked at other guys on other teams, and Brad Davis when he was at Wisconsin, or Grayson Allen at Duke. It's that kind of deal right now. And he's got to take that into account. And yet, as I mentioned, the danger is you let that take you out of being who you need to be and who you are as a player, which in his case, someone who's extremely aggressive. But I've seen guys be extremely aggressive and not have these issues before. I've seen plenty of them. I saw Mateen Cleaves. I saw Scott Skiles. It can be done. And he needs to become that kind of player in a hurry, because this team is going nowhere fast without him.
So speaking of that too, this is sort of like a sub key to the game. So some slow starts from Michigan State, and then you get behind the 8 ball, playing catch up most of the game. I guess I would be probably my expectation, I guess, in this case is that Jeremy Fierce does not start the game. I don't know how long he goes without playing, 4 minutes, 8 minutes, something like that. Can they survive with, Denham Wojcik playing point, or do you think they're like playing Trey Ford as a point? Or I mean, I assume it's gonna be Wojcik unless
They're going to play Wojcik.
it's
Yeah,
disaster.
I don't have any doubt about that. No,
Can they survive that 8 minute start without Jeremy, for instance? Or I mean, I don't know what's going to happen.
No, if it's 8 minutes, no, they'll be in a hole. That would be my prediction. They'll be in a hole, and once again, you got to spend however many minutes trying to climb out of it. That's asking too much.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think they could survive that. I have no expectations in terms of what may or may not happen. I'm not convinced he won't start. I don't know. But we'll have to see. If it was an 8 minute deal, you're asking me, do I think they could survive that? No.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because, on some level, you can self-impose some sort of punishment. If you're doing that in order to appease the league or other fan bases, nothing you do is going to appease them.
Tom Izzo's not going to do that.
And he doesn't care. Is he going to do something to make sure the Big Ten doesn't do something? Well, if the Big Ten is going to do something, they're going to do before the game anyway. And so
he's not going to do
Jeremy
that
does something, and if Jeremy does something dumb, it doesn't matter if he sat him for 15 minutes and he comes out and does something dumb, and he's still you're not going to gain anything, I guess is what I'm saying.
Anything Tom Izzo does is going to be done because he thinks it's in the best interest of his player and the program. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yep. I think that's the thing people need to kind of keep in mind, because he's not going to do this for show or any.
He's not trying to calibrate. Well, if I do this, if I sit him for this long, will the Big Ten not suspend? Not how it works.
Yeah. No, I mean,
not here.
Well, he pretty much sat him in that Minnesota game, right? Like after that, he's like, yeah. All right. So the second key to the game are the boards. Of course, Michigan State, and this seems like it's been the case now with Illinois the last couple of years, two really good rebounding teams. Michigan State's got, if you're going up against a really good offensive rebounding team, can you hold them under 30% and try and minimize those second chances? Can you carve out an edge at second chance points? On both ends. There's something that you can do to stop this juggernaut Illinois.
This is the one team in the league that I think can stand toe to toe with Michigan State on the boards. They're not quite as good as Michigan State, but they're real close. I think for Michigan State to have a chance to win, though, they've got to have an edge. I don't anticipate that they can pound Illinois.
No,
I think Illinois is too good for that. But Michigan State needs to find a way to have an edge. And look, you can't have Jackson Kohler and Carson Cooper rebounding the way they have been lately. Those guys need to get back to who they've been for the bulk of the season, and fast.
Yeah. And probably you could say Carr as well. Like, if you can. Well,
Carr needs to maintain who he's been lately.
Yeah, that's true.
He's the reason primarily it hasn't fallen off a cliff, that they've actually still rebounded well, even during this bad run. It's because Cohen Carr's been more impactful than he'd been. But the two bigs need to get back to who they are.
All right. So the third key of the game is attack. And I think we've talked about this before, but you can probably expand on that a little bit.
If they play with the kind of energy and insistence and force that we saw in the last 4 minutes of the Minnesota game, anything can happen. Absolutely anything can happen. If they play the way they did the first 36 minutes, they're going to get waxed.
Yeah.
That's simple. They are not a team. Michigan State's had plenty of teams that could go out there and Cadillac their way to a win, where they just had enough talent. And we haven't seen that very much. Michigan State usually energy, effort, toughness, all those things are on display. But they have had teams. Denzel Valentine senior year, that team was so skilled, they could not necessarily play with maximum tenacity and still beat people. This team is not that. They have no chance if they play that way.
Yeah. No, there's no question about that. And so, one of the questions about the attacking for Carr in the Minnesota game, the end, I don't know, was it last 8 minutes or something that he just kind of took over? Someone commented that they thought it was primarily because he's playing the 4 as opposed to playing 3. And I guess I wasn't paying attention at that point. I was fast forwarding through kind of miserable basketball to try and catch up so we could record quickly and get out of there. But was that the case? Is that because he was in a different spot?
It's factual in that's the position he was playing, because they were going primarily during that stretch with Cam Ward at the 5.
Mm-hmm.
And you could do that against Minnesota. You can't do that in this game. Illinois is too big. You can't do that. They're not going to do that. And I don't think it's the answer as to the why either. I don't. You could say that maybe if you said, well, he's better able to exploit physical edges against bigger 4s than he is 3s. But I think it's Occam's razor, man. It's much more simple than that. You see it. Is Cohen Carr flying around the ball and around the rim? If he is, he can impact games. If he's not, he really doesn't.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Activity level. That's what matters, not position.
Because like when that Mississippi game, which is I think sort of the epitome of sort of who he could be. I don't feel like Mississippi was playing really small. I don't remember him playing the 4 a lot. Maybe he did.
He's playing the 3.
He was playing the 3. So yeah, he's being impactful there.
This is people get hung up on stuff that I think it obfuscates the truth. It's oftentimes, not always, but I'm not discounting what that listener said, but sometimes it's pretty fucking simple. And I believe that to be the case here. Is Cohen Carr attacking the basket? You see it with your eyes when he is and when he isn't. It's not hard to spot.
Yeah, I feel like he doesn't do that at the beginning of the game ever. Like
he's
always like deferring or just
feeling it out and
feeling it out.
That.
Yeah,
can't have that. Not in a game like this. He's got to be flying for 40 minutes.
Yep. And I feel like in games where he does do that, he never like stops doing it. Like once he gets going, he never like suddenly becomes passive. It's always this absurd level of passivity.
It takes too long
then he gets
for
the
him to
activity.
start.
But don't you think I feel like I can't remember a time when he's really active and then he sort of just like disappears later. Maybe that happened, but
the problem is that when it works that way, he's waiting too long to start playing that way.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You touched on, you're right in what you said initially. He rarely ever comes out of the chute like that. Needs to in this game. Needs to.
Yeah.
Well, but it's not just him, by the way. There's other elements to this.
We'll get to them in a second here.
Yeah.
So fourth key to the game is guarding the arc. Obviously, you mentioned Illinois just was hitting 3 small over the place. They've definitely been shooting better of late, but they're still a very good team. They shoot a ton of them. And I think, like when Illinois came into the Breslin Center last year, Michigan State did a pretty good job limiting their 3s. I mean, what burned them last year was actually the back door. I mean, I can't, how many times did that? I mean, they must have scored
really hurt them
30 points at back cuts.
Yeah. That's true. I still think though, because this team has everybody they're going to play. Stojakovic is the one guy that you could say I'll live with him taking a 3.
Uh-huh.
It's funny, but I think that you've got to start from the premise of this team's going to hoist up a lot of 3s. It's who they are. So you damn well better be prepared to guard those. Locate and contest shooters. That's it. If you can hold that, as I said earlier, the reason from an Illinois perspective, I don't love the way they play is they're setting themselves up for a game when, for whatever reason, the 3s are not falling. And if that happens in this game, if Michigan State holds them to say sub 30% from 3, which absolutely could happen. That's not a big stretch.
Yeah.
Michigan State can win this game. Absolutely they can.
And so the fifth and final key are the bigs, Kohler and Cooper, and probably some extent Ward and McCullough, but certainly the seniors, they gotta show up.
Yeah, we just have not seen those guys collectively playing at the level that they were on a pretty consistent basis for the bulk of the season to date. The last 2-3 weeks, it's been off kilter. One might have a good game, the other not so much. The rebounding from the two starters has been less consistent than it was. That's all got to change for Michigan State to have a shot here, no question. And they're capable of doing it. I don't know. I don't know the why as to what we've seen happening, because I know those guys are hard workers. I know they're bringing effort. It's just the level of play hasn't been great. One thing, it's a caveat to that though, is particularly with Jackson, Michigan State has gotten away from doing what they need to do in terms of getting him the ball in the post. Now, this is a game where I think that's going to be difficult because of Illinois' size. They're gonna offer a lot of resistance, but that doesn't mean you abandon it either. It's all part of that attacking mode. Get the ball to the rim. Don't settle. Be forceful. Make the other team stop you.
So then moving on to talk a little bit more about the situation here with the Divine, who we don't expect to play. You've got Wojcik at the backup point. If you want to, I guess it's sort of the strategy. You've got a sort of a game strategy, like, winning the battle, and there's a war strategy. You want to try and do what you can in March. I think at some point, Michigan State has to probably make a decision. How many minutes do you think you can get out of Fears, right? And then you're just like, well, we've got to cobble together 8 minutes, let's say, with Fears off the floor. Is this a kind of game where Wojcik can survive? He gives up a lot of size, athleticism, gives up everything defensively. The alternative, of course, is playing fourth there, and I just don't know that. I feel like that's
not an option.
You gain some offense, but
they've shown zero indication of doing that.
So it's just going to be just Wojcik can just ride it and just see how it goes, and right.
It's a terrible matchup.
Yeah,
in this game because Illinois is huge.
That's what I'm thinking with him. Yeah. I could see Scott, but he's got some size. But again, he's not a ball handler.
He's not ready. No, they're not gonna. I don't expect to see that. Who knows? Maybe I'll be surprised, but I don't think so. Trey Ford. No, you can't put that on his plate. And nobody else is Curtain, Jordan Scott. They're not ready for that.
Yeah. And obviously Nick Sanders is,
they're in a very,
right. Exactly,
so they're basically in a Denham Wojcik or bust mode for those minutes. They're going to have to. And it's very unfortunate because this is not a game where that bodes well for you, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, and there have been times when he's done enough to kind of he's done enough on offense to warrant him staying out there. At least distributing and running the offense. And, I guess the one advantage of having Denham out there is probably you would have him play slow to maximize the rest that Jeremy's got, minimize possessions and minimize the amount of damage and problems that could be caused with him out as point guard.
Yeah.
And so then
that's how you draw it up. But, again, the other part of the problem here is at the defensive end, this is a team that, as we talked about, their MO, hunt mismatches. Well, they're going to have some mismatches. Honestly, probably the thing I would do, and what I would guess they'll do, is they will not have him guarding Wagler. They will have him guarding Jake Davis.
Yeah, right.
Because at least they're, if Jake Davis is all of a sudden going to try and post somebody up, okay, but that's not what he normally does. And so you're getting him out of who he is as a player. You might survive that, but that's the part that gives you, keep in mind though, Illinois is going to do everything they can to force a switch.
Right.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, very interesting. Of course, as I mentioned before, I will be at the pregame pep talk and the pep where we have the dinner. And so if you're there, please say hi. We'll see how things turn out. And again, make sure you go to our support page, the Final Four is on the schedule.com/support. There you can support the show through a one-time gifting via PayPal or Venmo, or certainly on a recurring basis at Substack or on Patreon. You can also find all our other great sponsors, Brothers Jester Gutters, Nudge Printing, Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids, Fanduel. Also, you can pick up a copy of Mike Garland's book. Also, you can get some electrolyte solution. You get a free variety pack if you buy at least a variety pack. So anyway, headed over there today. Is all kinds of cool stuff. Cost you nothing. So until next time, we'll be back after the game. The Final Four is on the schedule. Go green.